All right. Sorry for the absence. Took a trip with the family over the past weekend up to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. I took my laptop and all my equipment just in case I caught a break. When the family was talking about going fishing or something, and honestly, I've gone fishing. I'll do it, but honestly, for that weekend in particular, we were supposed to go to the beach. This lovely individual named Dorian messed that up for us, by the way. Praying for all those who were affected by Dorian. And I'm keeping you in my thoughts and prayers for all those who were affected by that storm. It's seriously a tragedy when storms like that come through and, destroy homes and really hurt families. But nonetheless, we weren't able to go to Myrtle Beach, so we took a trip up to the mountains into Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. I took my equipment just in case I caught a break alone, didn't go out, and like for the fishing, for example. Unfortunately, we never went fishing at all. We were busy from dusk till dawn all weekend with stuff to do. It was a busy weekend. By the time we got back to the room, everybody was there. I didn't want to ask everybody to have to, be quiet for me to make a video or something, you know what I mean? Or try to sit there and be awkwardly making a video while everyone else is having conversation in the background. So, that being said, just wasn't able to do it. But nonetheless, back on track. And, of course, those of you who've paid attention, today is 9/11. A day that's going to stand out in Americans' minds for decades and decades to come. It's one of those American tragedies like Pearl Harbor, for example. You're never going to forget about it. I can remember, as a matter of fact, the day that it happened. I can't remember for sure if I was in K4 or K5, but I was definitely still in kindergarten when it took place, and I remember they sent us all home from school. And at the time, I remember I went home, I watched clips on television, and nothing really stood out to me like, well, what's really going on here? I saw planes hitting buildings. They were making a big deal out of it. I was like 5 years old at the time, so nothing really registered to me. I kept seeing a picture of Osama bin Laden carrying AK-47s. They just kept showing his picture and pictures of those planes hitting the buildings. And then as time went on, you see a lot of the tragic aftermath, the buildings coming down, what happened to the Pentagon, people standing there covered in ash. And you hear about all the people who lost their lives on 9/11. And so I definitely want to, send my sympathies out to all those who were affected by 9/11 and to all the first responders. I want to say thank you who responded so quickly on the events of 9/11. Unlike the comments from some who think that just because we had a bad foreign policy, the country deserved a 9/11 attack. I don't care how much they want to walk it back. They said it, and that was an absolutely horrendous thing to have said. So with that being said, I want to say thank you to all the first responders. And I want to bring one other thing up, of course, too. This was in the news quite a bit recently. Actually, really before I started really getting into my YouTube channel. And that's all the first responders who are needing medical coverage, for their illnesses and cancer that they received as a result of going through all that smoke and, debris and whatnot from 9/11 and then the effects that it's taken on their body. And without a doubt, they responded in the interest of not only New Yorkers in New York City, but this country. So they deserve that medical coverage without a doubt. There shouldn't be any debate. They should be getting the best of the best. No questions asked, hands down. That's my stance on that, okay? So, that being said, let's get into some topics. Of course, the one weekend that I can't record, oh boy, did I have a lot that I needed to be covering. I'm going to be trying to put up as many videos as I can today. We'll extend it tomorrow if I'm able to do some tomorrow. But first and foremost, and I started watching some of this on my way actually to Pigeon Forge when I was riding along. So apparently, Bernie Sanders went on to The View again recently, and at one point, the issue of Tulsi Gabbard being excluded from the debates was brought up, and there was a comparison made between how the DNC tried to screw Bernie Sanders in 2016 and are they trying to screw Tulsi Gabbard now. So let's take a look at what was asked of Bernie and how he responded to it.
Yeah. Senator, can I get a little wonky with you? So President Trump, in conspiratorial terms, he recently tweeted that the DNC has already decided to back Biden. He said, look what they did. The DNC is again working its magic in its quest to destroy crazy Bernie Sanders. I feel uncomfortable saying that to you. For the more traditional but not very bright, sleepy Joe Biden, I feel uncomfortable with that too. Here we go again, Bernie, but this time please show a little more anger and indignation when you get screwed. So he's basically saying that the DNC screwed you over last time for Hillary and is going to screw you over again. Do you think that's happening? And if it does, will you have a contested convention?
Well, Meg, let me respond in 2 sentences.
And I would never speak that.
I know you. I know you.
We have our differences,
when President Trump refers to somebody else as crazy, talk about, somebody in a glass house. So President Trump.
It's called a projection.
Yes.
So you feel like the DNC is in the tank for candidates?
Look, last time around, and this time, my campaign, talked about it with Whoopi, we are taking on the establishment. That's no great secret. We're taking on Wall Street. We're taking on the insurance companies, the drug companies. We're taking on Trump. We're taking on the Republican machine. We're also taking on the Democratic establishment. The difference, though, between this time and last time is, as you will recall, before the first vote was cast in Iowa, Secretary Clinton had 500 superdelegates lined up behind her. In other words, like it's a 100-yard race, she's on the 30-yard line. We ended that. I would go further, but right now, on the first ballot at the Democratic National Convention, no superdelegate will be voting. That's a step forward. Second of all, I'm feeling pretty good about our campaign, and I very much appreciate President Trump's wholehearted concern about me. I know he is being sincere about this.
Yeah. Can I just follow up really quick, though? But Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard is saying she's been excluded from the DNC stage, and she actually resigned, as you know, as vice chair of the DNC last time because of your treatment. Number one, do you think that she was right? Again, I just don't know if getting rid of superdelegates is enough. And do you think it's your turn to stand up for her to be on the debate stage now?
Let me just say this. I would go further. I would ban superdelegates from voting on any ballot. We could not achieve that. We got them off the first ballot, which was a step forward. Tulsi is a good friend of mine. Where the DNC right now had a difficult problem. How do you deal with 20 candidates who are running? Do you have 20 people up on the stage together? Does that make a sensible debate? I think not. So they came up with their approach. I am not a great fan, I should tell you, Megan, as to how we do debates in general.
Right.
My own feeling would be, rather than giving people 45 seconds to talk about what we do with the crisis of high cost of prescription drugs, we focus on healthcare, we focus on climate change, do it issue by issue, rather than trying to deal with 50 different issues in a short period of time.
So Bernie made some certainly valid points throughout there. Obviously, they've changed the rule about super delegates in the first round and how Hillary kind of was on the 30-yard line at the start of the race in the last election thanks to super delegates. But he hasn't eliminated the super delegates altogether. And there's one thing he's just failing to do, and that is call the DNC out as a whole. He's not taking the gloves off and just telling it like it is. He's kind of, excuse me, getting to the point, just not actually saying all the words that should be in the message, if that makes any sense. And I'm sorry if you hear me coughing at all through some of these videos. Allergies have finally kicked in on me a little late in the season, but it's coming and I'm trying to fight that off right now. So if I sound like, I've been chain smoking for 20 years in some of these videos in the next couple of days, that's why. But anyway, He's just not getting the full message out. He's doing what we like to call in the South beating around the bush. He's just kind of tiptoeing around the whole issue here. He's bringing up the superdelegates, and I applaud him for that, but he's not coming out right and saying yes. There were multiple polls that qualified Tulsi Gabbard for this debate, and then the DNC decided they wanted to cherry pick those polls, excuse me, very nicely to exclude her from debate. As we've covered, the polls they have selected were not favorable polls to less known candidates, people who didn't have a lot of household recognition to start with. They went with those polls. Some of those polls had a worse reputation on accuracy than some of the ones she's qualifying in, and they would not recognize those polls. And some were national polls. And as actually, there are more polls coming out that are showing she's tying, if not passing, Kamala Harris. You know, good old Kamala Harris, the one that she exposed for a complete fraud in the last set of debates. Kamala's on the stage, Tulsi's not. And considering Tulsi took the moral stance to do the right thing for what she felt was the right thing, when the DNC was trying to screw the primaries and rig them to screw Bernie Sanders in the 2016 election cycle, she took the moral high ground. She resigned her position in the DNC as the vice chair to take a stand and stand for something. You know, for those of you who are familiar with any sort of country music, I'd like to bring up the old Aaron Tippin song. You've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. Okay? What are you standing for, Bernie? We've heard your political policies, but you're trying to play a political game and you don't want to just downright insult the DNC. And why, Bernie? Why? You're definitely, I will consider you a Democrat at this point. You're certainly not an independent. You've been independent for years and years and years and years and years, but you're trying to run on a Democrat platform because you think that it's just too much of a long shot for a third-party candidate to stand a decent chance at winning the election. And I say, if it's done right and has enough of a grassroots movement, it can be done. It can be done. And if Ross Perot hadn't have dropped in and out in the 92 election cycle, and he didn't do it that much, but he was actually ahead in many reputable polls over Clinton and Bush. Because he dropped out and got back in, I think he lost a lot of his fire. And, of course, we got Bill Clinton as a result. He had a huge grassroots movement behind him. And he used a tactic that Bernie Sanders actually referenced. Of course, he didn't do it because TV gave him time. Of course, he was rich enough, he bought the TV time to go on the air on television and explain his case to the people. And I do think things like that should be done. Of course, as Bernie said on Joe Rogan's podcast, TV companies are not going to do it willingly. It's going to have to be government involvement. They're going to have to pass a law, and they're going to have to pass a bill saying that you will have to designate this much time for presidential candidates to speak to the people. You're a news network, so I wouldn't put this on, Cartoon Network. I wouldn't put this on Spike TV. I wouldn't put this on your Paramount Network. I think they've actually got changed to recently. I wouldn't put this on TNT. I wouldn't put it on USA, HBO. No. ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, the whole 9 yards. If you are a news network and have any sort of a relationship with television whatsoever, and that would actually be RT America and TYT included, because they actually are associated with television to some extent. They're not in, I think, like really cable packages. I think RT America may be. But I know if you get some of those free TV apps, you definitely get RT America and TYT in there also. So if you're a news network, you have to air this. You have to air this, and every one of them at the same time, simulcasts all over. Every last one of them has to air people explaining their case. Well, so I think that should be mandatory. They get an allotted amount of time, and we're not talking 5 minutes. I'd give them at least 15. Since they have 20-something candidates here, okay, take 30 minutes a night and designate out at least 15 minutes. I know Bernie kind of went longer than that, but we'll go about 15 minutes. If you have a huge debate stage, like the 20-something candidates that are running right now, Democrat platform. If you have less than that, obviously you could give longer. But give them that time. Let them explain their case. But that's going to take government involvement here. Okay, but again, Bernie's bringing up all these good points, but he's just not getting to the root of the problem. Okay, he's not saying the DNC is in the tank. He's he's saying, "Oh, we're taking on the establishment. We're taking on the establishment. We're taking on all the crooked politicians." He's saying all this and that, but he's just not coming out and saying, yes, they want a specific candidate, and the idea they have in mind really is not someone like Tulsi Gabbard or me, because they didn't want me to get it in 2016, and really still don't want me to get it now. Even a lot of the polls they want to pitch to the media today about how far behind Bernie is, people could argue they're cherry picking those polls. Okay? They are propaganda machines. And the news outlets and the DNC, they have their hand-picked people that they think are best for the job. And Tulsi Gabbard is just not one of those people. And, to me, even though he's hinting at it, Bernie, I'm disappointed that you don't just come out and say yes. They're being unfair to Tulsi Gabbard here. As a matter of fact, I would like to bring up the fact that they are cherry-picking polls. She's qualified in over this amount of polls, but they will not let her on the debate stage because they will not recognize those polls. And, for that matter, they won't explain why they recognize these polls but not others, considering some of these others have more of an accuracy than the ones they're recognizing. And they're not explaining why they chose those polls. Seriously, Bernie. Seriously. Stand up for some morals here, okay? And I'm not trying to come down too hard, but honestly, this makes me suspicious of you, Bernie. This makes me very suspicious of Bernie Sanders, okay? And I want you all to think about this. Please, don't tune me out, but think about this, okay? Tulsi Gabbard is someone who resigned her position in the DNC because the DNC was trying to screw you, Bernie. You. They tried to screw you, and they succeeded. And you still endorsed the witch who was behind screwing you. And that would be Hillary Clinton. You endorsed her. That looked pretty bad to a lot of people, Bernie. It looked like you sold out. But one person who stood up and said, no, I can't support the DNC when they're doing corrupt things like this to our political system. And she's still a Democrat, but she resigned her position over it because of that. And you can't even take the time, as far ahead in the polls as you are of Tulsi Gabbard, to just speak up and tell the truth. They're cherry picking the polls and they're trying to screw you. And why, Bernie? The only thing I could come up with is that you're basically being a cuck to the DNC. You're trying to sit there and please your masters, the DNC. Because you're not an independent anymore, Bernie. You're trying to sit there and get the support of the DNC because you don't want to get the screw job. You think that if you don't try to somewhat play their game, and if you get on stage and, really bring the hammer down and tell it like it is against the DNC, they'll most certainly try to screw you out of the nomination. So you're going to try to kiss all the butt you can to get that nomination. Bernie, I got news for you. They're going to make you look like a fool. At the end of the day, you will get screwed out of the nomination if they actually had any intention of doing it to start with. They will screw you out of that nomination through cherry picking of polls, rigging of systems, contested conventions, and super delegate systems. Okay? They're going to get you out of it if they really, really, really want you out of it. And that's why even if Tulsi Gabbard somehow catches up in the polls, that super delegate system and a contested convention makes it nearly impossible for someone that the DNC does not want to get the nomination. Even though I'm fully behind Tulsi, I also realize that even if she somehow gets ahead of everyone else in the polls, she's got an uphill battle even still for getting that nomination. And so does Bernie Sanders. Because while I agree with Tulsi, and I like Tulsi more than Bernie, Bernie's obviously ahead in the polls. But they don't want him either. However, I still feel like Bernie is trying to kiss some corporate butt here. He's trying to kiss some DNC butt, okay, by not just downright calling them out. I really don't know how else to put it, and I'm convinced. And so, Bernie, if you're going to kiss this butt to try to get the nomination, you do realize that just because you get elected doesn't mean you're going to have a House and a Senate that's going to be right in line behind your agenda. Trump had a Republican House and a Senate, and he couldn't get them all on board to vote for everything he wanted. Now, he got most of it through, but he could not rally the Republicans to just fall in line like nice little soldiers and support everything he put on the table. He got pushback from Republicans a lot, actually. Of course, now, like I said, the majority of it got passed. The tax bill got passed, okay? But his health care plan, they wouldn't vote for that. Why not? So, Bernie, what I'm getting at is, now you might say Trump's policies were bad, Bernie's policies were good. We'll leave that debate for another time. But it does not matter, Bernie. There is a large portion of the Democratic Party who are still bought and paid for by the corporate machine. And they are not going to fall in line behind your agenda like nice little obedient soldiers and just vote yes on everything you propose. So, Bernie, I have to ask myself, you know the Republicans won't do it. Republicans are attacking your policies to death. What makes you think they would vote for it? And for God's sakes, Obama catered to the Republicans when he had a bulletproof Senate and a House. The Republicans couldn't even filibuster him in the Senate. And yet he still watered down the health care program to an old Richard Nixon plan, basically. Okay? So, Bernie, even if you don't want Republican support, what makes you think you're going to get overwhelming votes, even if you pass the House? What makes you think you're going to get those votes in the Senate, Bernie? The people could be behind you overwhelmingly, Bernie. But over 50% of the country and a lot of Republicans want marijuana legalized recreationally. But they're not doing it, are they, Bernie? No. They're not doing it. Okay? A lot of the country, including Republicans, are in favor for Medicare for all. Why hasn't it already been passed, Bernie? You can't sign it through with executive orders. They're not passing it. You're campaigning on it, but they're not passing it now. What makes you think they're just going to do it because you want it? I mean, really, you could argue this for Tulsi and anybody else, too. But what makes you think they're just going to go and do it? And I say all that, and my voice is probably cracking, and I sound like I'm, some kind of little wimp over here or something. Again, apologies if I sound like absolute crap in this video. But I say that to say this. Bernie, they're not going to play ball for you. They're just not. I don't care if you win and become president. They're not going to kiss your butt because you kissed theirs So they didn't fight back to get the nomination. No, if anything, Bernie, if they go with some of your policies and the Democrats fall in line behind your policies, now, of course, a lot of their base are in favor of a lot of the things you're talking about. But you'll notice these current Democrats just try to pander to the base by talking about it. They just don't actually do it. People like Kamala Harris, who for years, ever since they were Attorney General of California, has not been in favor of legalizing marijuana. And now they are, because over 50% of the country is in favor of it. Yet, when they were running for Attorney General, she scoffed at the Republican candidate for that position who was in favor of legalizing marijuana. She made it like it was such a dumb idea. She wants criminal justice reform, or criminal justice reform, but she doesn't let people out of jail as the Attorney General of California. She keeps them in for cheap labor for the state of California. And she has to be court ordered. She was refusing to let people out of jail who were innocent and on death row until a court ordered her to let them go. So Bernie, these are who your, friends, we'll call them, are going to be should you win that election, should you win that nomination. If you're kissing butt now and playing their game, what are you going to do as president? What are you going to do as a president? See, that's my problem. That's my problem. I know I sound like I'm talking straight to Bernie Sanders, and in a way I kind of am, but I want everyone who sees this video to honestly sit back and think about it. If Bernie's not willing to take the strong stance to call out the DNC's corruption and try to lead the movement, considering he is much higher on those polls than Tulsi Gabbard, why won't he take that stand? By doing nothing but cucking out to the DNC and kissing their butt, that makes me suspicious that as president, if they support any position you support, then they will, as a counter, tell you, okay, Bernie, you want our vote? Well, let me tell you how this machine you don't like really works, son. We'll vote. You're going to slip some provisions in for us. You're going to propose some bills and provisions for us that benefit us and benefit our donors. We don't want Citizens United repealed, Bernie. Oh, no. We like our pocketbooks being lined with money. And we don't like the fact you're saying something about it. So, Bernie, if you want any of our votes for anything, and you even want to have a chance of getting it past the Republicans, well, Bernie, you're going to have to play ball by our rules. And if Bernie's bowing to them now by not wanting to really get down and, into the pit and have a fist fight with them and a real revolution to show the corruption and show I'm a people person, regardless of policy, at least be a truth teller all the way around, even on the DNC, and not beat around the bush like he's prone to do when he's talking about the DNC. If you're bowing out now, Bernie, and you're not fighting back and defending the people who defended you, that makes me very suspicious of what you would do if you would become president. So, nonetheless, I do have to give credit where credit is due. Again, Bernie did make some very valid points here about what has been going on with this system and what has been going on to Tulsi Gabbard. But he, like I said, he beat around the bush. He didn't get to the heart of the issue, and I'm really disappointed that he didn't do that. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Independent Report. If you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Also, please subscribe to the channel as we're trying to grow this channel to reach more and more people every day. And if you subscribe, be sure that you ring that bell so that you stay up to date and get notifications when we release new content. Also, please support us in the link below with our Patreon. We're trying to make this channel grow. Funds will be used to grow the channel and to reach more people. We appreciate your support, and we hope you tune in next time.